All right. Monday night, double fries, no sauce, something a little bit different. We've been doing call-in shows on Tuesday morning with Decadent Coffee and Dessert Bar. So this isn't necessarily going to replace that, but I talked with some people. They said that they wanted to do a call-in show. They wanted to come on. And so if this is something people like, then, we can continue to do it. We can do it more often. We can move the morning show to make it a night show. It still says morning show at the bottom. Don't give me a super hard time for that. But if this is something you guys like, then great. If you hate it, then we won't do it anymore. Or it'll just be me and Harlan in here talking by ourselves, and we'll do that instead. So obviously, big news with Florida State making some big changes. We'll certainly talk about that. I ranted about this for roughly 30 minutes last night and really wanted to hear from some other people as to kind of what your thoughts were on this. I'd assume most people are pretty happy that this happened. Most people are pretty thrilled with the result, but I'm certainly open to hearing what other people think. Do you think this isn't enough? Do you think that obviously, would assume that more is coming? But we can talk through that. I've had a lot of questions on who we think may be next, right? And so appreciate Decadent, a coffee and dessert bar, for their partnership. I'll tell you about them in a little bit as we get more people in here. They've got some exciting stuff going for Veterans Day. Appreciate the work that they do to give back to our veterans. Appreciate my guy Patrick over there as well for just all that he does, and not only for FSU, but for our channel as well. So let's get to it. Obviously, Florida State makes some coaching changes. There is a link to call. Maybe that's a good thing to tell you too. There is a link to call in the description. That is also in the comments. It's the third or fourth comment down. So you can search for that or scroll up to that and call in at any point. If you're catching this afterward, you should have had your notifications on, and then you would have known we were doing this. I also tweeted about it. So if you want to call in, you got to be ready. I think at 11 a.m. it's hard to, or 9 a.m. We do them at 9 a.m., right? We do. It's hard to get people to call in at 9 a.m. because you're doing work or pretending to do work. Nobody's actually doing work at that point, but you're pretending to do work and things like that. So it's harder to get people to log in. We can also just answer a bunch of questions, a bunch of comments, and however long we're on here is up to you guys. However long you guys want to interact and talk and stuff is good with me. We can be on here all night, or we can make this a relatively quick thing. I don't have a real strong preference. I will, as we get started, I'll look at some of these questions because I think that's a good place to start. Randy Shannon will retire after the season. I don't know if he retires. I certainly don't expect him to be at Florida State after the season. Shared some info on, why I think Randy wasn't let go. I think that's mostly a financial decision, and probably a pretty smart one for Florida State since he had the co-DC tag. So I think that's probably a pretty good move by them. Long overdue? Yeah, I think so. I think just it got to a point, Ronald, where, you have the worst, like literally the worst offense in FBS. So the only team of 134 that hasn't scored over 21 points. And a defense that's ranked like 99th, right? Like, so there's been a lot of talk of like, oh, why are you doing this? If why are you giving the defense such a hard time if the offense is terrible too? Well, that is true. Just because the offense is terrible doesn't necessarily mean the defense hasn't been a pretty abject failure as well. And I think there's a lot more talent on the defensive side of the ball. And there's a lot more talent on the defensive line. I really like the secondary. I know the linebackers haven't necessarily been everybody's favorite, but, I don't know. Here's a hot take for you. The offense, you can kind of understand the offensive struggles. Not really, but you can kind of start to understand the offensive struggles. What makes it hard, I think, on the offense is the quarterback play isn't very good, and the offensive line isn't very good. And so if you don't have good offensive line play and you don't have good quarterback play, it kind of makes sense why you wouldn't be a super effective offense. You cannot block anybody. You can't throw the ball. We lead the country in drop rate. Like, the offense kind of makes sense. it doesn't make sense at Florida State why you would be this bad. I do want to be careful in trying to justify any of that, but the defense has the talent. And maybe that's what's most frustrating to me. And people like to get off on because people want to fire Mike. And I know this says morning show, but we're going to do Diet Dr. Pepper instead. People want to fire Mike, and I get that. I think people have a right to think that this is unacceptable at Florida State. And so they say how could you fire the defense when, the offense, or how could you fire a defensive coordinator when the offense is so much worse? Well, the defense actually has talent and isn't able to do anything with it. So to me, it kind of makes sense to a point. The offense is doing, what would you call it, less with less, whereas the defense actually has talent on it and is still that poorly coached. Yeah, I think it was justifiable, right? The people that want to say how could you get rid of the defense because your offense is so bad? I think it very much makes sense to get rid of them. Call in. So let's talk about some of this. Heard NFL coaches are interested. I don't know. That's interesting to me. And I like the NFL model, but man, here's my worry with the NFL stuff. If they're in the NFL right now, are you really able to pull them? Now, I know everybody hates when I talk about this, and I get jokes about it all the time. But maybe if they're a position coach, but most NFL guys aren't going to leave until after the season. And if you're taken from a bad NFL team, maybe that's after December. But if you're taken from a good NFL team, that might not be until, late January. And so I will say this. Colorado last year hired Robert Livingston as their defensive coordinator, and he was their secondary coach, DBs, cornerback, something, right? He was something on that side of the ball, which Dion obviously values a ton, being a cornerback, and obviously that's where his son plays safety. So maybe makes a little bit of sense as to why you might do that. But if you were to get a position coach in the NFL and make him your defensive coordinator, then maybe the NFL stuff makes sense to me. But I don't know, man. With the way that the timeline is expedited, I don't know that you can wait because of the portal. Florida State's going to have to be really, really good in the portal this year, or we're going to be really terrible again next year. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And so it's hard for me to think that they could wait for an NFL guy. I know what Mike said. Actually, his press conference today sounded better than any press conference I've heard in quite a while by him. So I don't know. The NFL stuff is interesting to me. I don't really know how that works out, but we'll see, right? Hopefully whoever they do bring in is I don't want to say I don't care who it is, because obviously I want them to be good hires. I want this to end up working out. I really haven't changed my stance on if I think Norvell can turn this around, but I do think that this is a step in the right direction to turning it around. Obviously, if you go into next year with the same coaches, there is zero chance. And so my chances aren't still super high, but the NFL question is certainly interesting to me. Kenneth, is Norvell forced to fire? Was he forced to fire the coaches? Is he not strong enough leader to make tough decisions? Saban fired coaches after winning titles. Forced to fire, I don't know. I don't know that he said no and Alfred just said well, I'm going to fire the coaches anyway. So I don't have a great answer on that. I think coaching changes were coming either way. I do think that there's a pretty strong likelihood that he was strongly encouraged to make those changes happen faster. I think the changes were his decision. I think the timing, again, may have been strongly encouraged. We talked about this. We talked about how, Florida State brings in X number of millions of dollars a year. If that number starts to go down, it starts to make sense to start paying some buyouts, whether that's the coordinators or assistants or head coach, right? If Florida State started losing $15 million a year because Mike Norvell was the coach, it would obviously make sense to pay his $10 million a year buyout. That just simple math. It doesn't take the head, spreadsheet guy to figure that one out. Gruden's an interesting name. I don't know that I would ever really consider that. I don't think John Gruden wants to get in and grind recruiting. I know it's a fun, interesting name that gets tossed around. I don't think there's any kind of legitimacy to that happening. I've been wrong, though, before. Certainly would not have predicted this team to be 1-9, so that's just my opinion. I actually like Muschamp better. I really like that idea. I think he's an absolute animal and would have this defense incredibly tough and incredibly ready to play. I think he's a good recruiter. Florida always brought in talent when he was there. South Carolina brought in talent when he was there. And I think he's done a good job at Georgia, too. The thing that makes Muschamp hard, not to poke holes in everybody's suggestions, but the thing that makes Muschamp hard is he's got a kid in college. Harlan, I don't know if you can look that up, like where his kid in college is, as far as what year or whatever. But I believe isn't Muschamp on staff at UGA, and then Kirby lets him take Saturdays off to go watch his kid at Vandy? I want to say that's correct. Somebody can fact check me. But yeah, I think you're going to have to offer him a whole lot of money to get him off of that. And Florida State's got money to pay. So they certainly, I don't necessarily know that money is going to keep them from making a big hire. I would like Muschamp. I think I tweeted a picture of Muschamp in an FSU polo quite a few weeks ago. And so yeah, if I was making the hires, that would be my first pick. If I could hire anybody I wanted, defensive coordinator, maybe outside of Jeremy Pruitt. His son is 24 class. So yeah, he's literally just got there this year. Maybe we take his son as a transfer. I don't know, but yeah, I actually like Muschamp. So who else do I think will give a pink slip? We'll talk about that one in just a minute. Lions OC. I don't know that I have maybe we'll get Harlan. We'll really put Harlan to work on this one, but I don't know that I have a good vibe on NFL coaches to know who might be a good pickup, who wouldn't. Harlan, who you got for Lions offensive coordinator? And what do we think about that hire? Maybe we'll talk with the chat about that to see if they like it. I don't know anything about the Lions OC, so it's hard for me to give a specific pick. Oh, I do want to talk about this a little bit. I want to talk about. Well, I'll answer Fathead's question. Am I saying that right? Fred? No, not Fathead. Fred the Head. Sorry, this. If you could see how small the screen is, that wasn't me trying to give you a diss or anything. But who do I think will get the pink slip? All right, I'll talk about that in just a minute. That'll be the next question we answer. I do want to give some love to Decadent, a coffee and dessert bar. Awesome opportunity they've got going right now for veterans who want to be business owners. My guy Patrick posted this. As a veteran-owned franchise, we salute our veterans and their service to this great country every day. On this Veterans Day, we want to take a larger step to honor those who have served by waiving franchise fees. That's $30,000 that they're waiving for franchise fees for vets who are ready to take the leap into their entrepreneurial journey. We will provide exceptional support in operations, marketing, real estate, and construction. As we know, in order to succeed, we do it as one team. Our focus is to maintain affordable and cost-effective startup and ongoing operation costs. Discover how you can take advantage of this special opportunity by emailing info@decadentdessertbar.com. In order to qualify for this event, you must submit your offer before November 12th. He said he'd give a little bit of grace period just due to this show going tonight. So if you are a vet and you have any interest in owning a business, my guy Patrick over at Decadent, a coffee and dessert bar, will waive the $30,000 franchising fee. I know that's really specific. I know that's, I don't know how many of you tuned in to potentially try to own a business, but as a vet-owned business, they are certainly looking to help vets any and every way they can. If you have any questions on that, you can certainly email me, tj@doublefriesnoslaw.com. I'll put that email in the description. Harlan, I'll actually just send that to you real quick so you can throw that in the description as well. But yeah, if that's something anybody's interested in, certainly would like to hook you up with Patrick. I can also just group text you if you shoot me up your info on social media. So who do we think else will get the pink slip on Norvell's staff? It would be pretty hard for me to imagine that Randy Shannon comes back next year. So we talked about that one. It would not surprise me at all if I'm not trying to upset anybody with this one. It would surprise me a lot, actually, if Pat Surtain was back next year. I don't think that Norvell is going to fire Pat Surtain, but I do think that there's a pretty good chance that Pat Surtain will go elsewhere, whether that's the NFL, whether that's another college, whether that's just taking some time off to enjoy life. I've been told by multiple people that, Pat doesn't, it probably just won't be here next year, right? That's probably the most I'll say at this point. So I think Randy and Pat, I mean, I've mixed emotions on JP. I'm not a huge JP fan. I don't think he cares about recruiting. I've talked with people that have spoken with him, and they've told him that he does not care about recruiting. And so that's a pretty cornerstone foundation of coaching at Florida State, is bringing in elite edge rushers, something we've done extremely well forever, but especially these last several decades. When you think back to, Mario Edwards Jr. all the way up to, Brian Burns and Bjorn Warner and guys at Verse and Johnson and stuff that we've had lately too. So yeah, I do think you need a defensive ends coach that is actually going to give a damn about recruiting that position. And I don't necessarily think that is JP. I'd love to be wrong on that. I'd love for him to completely flip what he's ever done. But I don't know that I have a lot of faith in that. And so we'll just kind of see how that goes. JP, I don't necessarily think is safe, but we'll see. Harlan, I just texted you that. If you could put it under the call-in link, that'd be great. Offensive side of the ball, I see some people talking about Sunseri for quarterbacks coach. Again, I don't have really strong opinions on Thompson or Tokars. I don't think either one of those guys is a massive detriment to your staff. I don't think either of them is a massive plus at this point. I think people have kind of whispered, Thompson going to O-line since Atkins is gone. I guess I could see that. I'd rather a little bit better recruiter at tight ends coach. Obviously, he's done a pretty good job getting you Landon Thomas. I don't know how much credit he gets for Amari Williams. I think that's more of a, we pulled kind of a rabbit out of our hat with that one and recruited him as a defensive end. So I don't know how much credit he gets there, but yeah, I think Thompson and Tokars are kind of, I don't know who I would consider the safest. I think they could certainly upgrade Yak. I think David Johnson's a really good guy, a nice guy. I think you want a little bit better recruiter there. He's also over recruiting. And so certainly some of the recruiting issues fall kind of at his feet. And so, yeah, I think you could probably upgrade there fairly easily and find a guy that gives a little bit better effort. I understand that Cam Davis and, what's the other kid's name that we took running back from Tallahassee area? Both committed this year, but I don't know. I mean, you recruit a local kid from Tallahassee. I don't know that that's a huge, feather on your cap. And then Cam Davis grew up an FSU fan, so I don't really know how hard that was. Yeah, Mekhi Danzy. So yeah, I think you could upgrade there. Winky at QB coach, obviously I don't hate that at all. I don't. Is Winky officially their OC and QB coach, or is he just Winky? So here's a take. I don't love the former player thing a ton. I think it makes it incredibly difficult on you when you do need to make changes, a la Dawsey, a la Dugans, a la Odell, all these guys. I didn't mention Odell in the last thing. Yeah, I think this will be Odell's last year too. Co-OC. Yeah, so this would be a step up. Yeah, I do think it's hard. I like Winky a lot, and I think he could be really, really good. My worry there is that a guy that his history at Florida State is probably what worries me in him working under Mike Norvell. The fact that he's won a Heisman Trophy, the fact that he's won national championships, the fact that he's a pretty strong-willed person. Maybe Norvell needs some of that, needs some pushback and some guys that are going to kind of lay it to him straight and kind of give him, the honest truth and not just a bunch of yes men. But I do wonder kind of what that dynamic looks like, and is his prior history at Florida State something that would be hard to overcome? I don't know. I don't have a great answer on that. That's maybe my one holdup. In general, though, of all the former players, that you could potentially bring in as a coach, he'd probably be at the top of my list. I can't really, I put out kind of a joking tweet earlier. A lot of people thought it was pretty serious, but the fans would like to hire this guy, that guy, the other guy. I do think that he'd be a pretty good one. I have somewhat warmed up to the idea of Ernie Sims as well. I spoke with some UCF folks, and I think Ernie Sims kind of got a bad deal at UCF. I don't think he was so much fired there. I do think that I'm warming up to that idea of Ernie Sims. Could you do better than Sims? Probably. But I do think that that's one that, I don't know, maybe he could get TJ Alford to flip from Ohio State. I'm not going to guarantee that. I would not flip from Ohio State. We have as many wins as they have losses. But you could do worse than Ernie Sims for sure. So I don't think that's a terrible hire by any means. I just think you have to kind of put all options on the table. And if you could do better, you should, right? And so just promoting from within is something Norvell has typically done. And sometimes you have to just go outside. Here's a couple good ones. What about Odell? Yeah, I think this will be Odell's last year. I don't think Odell's getting fired. I think they would essentially just move on, and he would retire, or he would, kind of say like, this is enough for me. What about Crow? Crow tweeting. I think you might need, I like Crow. Maybe he would be great. Maybe he would be really, really good. I don't know. I don't have a great, I don't think that Crow is, as much as I obviously appreciate everything he did at Florida State, I don't know that that's like a slam dunk hire that you just absolutely have to pull in, have to get, like, can't miss guy. I don't mean this in a negative way, and it'll probably get clipped and somebody will yell at me for it, but if a coach is not currently coaching right now, I kind of wonder why, right? Like, I mean, I know he was at A&M with Jimbo, and so but why I kind of want somebody that's kind of you need some people with some relationships right now, with some high school relationships that you can kind of rely on immediately. Like, and maybe Crow has that right now. Maybe he's kept up relationships. Probably not. I don't know how many high school kids he's reaching out to and talking with on a daily basis, but I do think that you want guys that are able to kind of rely on some of those relationships. I don't know that he necessarily has that. Now, he certainly has the pedigree, playing in the NFL and being as elite as he was. And, I think he could certainly train guys. I think he could develop really well. And DB at Florida State, I'll say this, kind of does recruit itself. Like, all you have to do is put in a little bit of effort and you can recruit defensive backs at Florida State. So maybe I'm talking myself into the Crow thing. Maybe it actually would work out. I don't know. I have no idea if that's again, kind of some of my thoughts on Winky, kind of some of my thoughts on hiring former players. I typically don't love that. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm not saying that it couldn't be great for you. I don't typically love that because I think, again, if it puts you in a weird spot later to have to fire a legend, right? You had to fire a national championship wide receiver yesterday, and I think that's awkward. I think that's a I think you sometimes give guys a little too much grace. And now, maybe you bring in 3 former players and they work out great. Maybe you bring in 10 former players and they work out great. I think it just kind of creates a weird dynamic. I'm not as big of a fan of it, but if people want to go that route, if Mike wants to go that route, I mean, ultimately this is on him to figure out, right? Like not me or you, but I do appreciate the questions. If Mike keeps, any chance Mike keeps Shannon if the defense plays better? No, I don't think so. You're playing 2 bad offenses after this. One offense with a third-string quarterback. Hopefully Lagway's back, just for his sake. But no, Florida's a bad offense. When Lagway got hurt against Georgia, he was 2 for 6. I think Florida State's DBs will actually play relatively well in that game, and the offense will just be inept, and that's why we'll lose. But no, I expect the defense to play better the next 2 weeks by virtue of who they're playing. I don't think there's any chance in hell. We could pitch 2 shutouts, and I do not see a chance that Randy Shannon comes back. And if he does, I think people will riot. Somebody asked earlier about were decisions forced? Was Norvell forced to make firings? Yeah, I think the president, the board of trustees, maybe Governor DeSantis, possibly President-elect Trump, they all might tell him that he's got to fire Randy Shannon. So, yeah, I don't see that one happening. The Army offensive coordinator, I'll tell you the truth, much respect to our military. I haven't watched one Army game yet this year, so maybe I will against Notre Dame. But I don't have maybe not even there. Let me scroll through some more of these comments. Again, there is a call-in link. I'd love to get some of you guys on, but we might do a call-in show where I just talk the whole time. So I'm okay with that too. Yeah, I don't see Shannon staying. Let's see. All right, so I'll talk a little bit about Norvell's press conference, which I thought was almost refreshing. Maybe we're just in a point right now where we are so desperate for any kind of good news that like the slightest little thing will give us some hope. But I actually thought Norvell's press conference was somewhat encouraging. You know, I thought that just the fact that he, first of all, I really liked what he said about bringing in an offensive coordinator potentially. I think Corey asked that. Corey Clark asked like, "Hey, your offense is absolute crap. Like, would you?" He didn't say that, but essentially in a nice way. He said, "Your offense is pretty terrible. Would you consider turning over play calling duties? Would you consider like giving that up?" And I don't want to say something can't work, but it would be hard for me to think that Norvell could continue play calling and Florida State continue to improve. Like I would really think that needs to change. I think his scheme has been pretty terrible this year. I don't think the scheme was really great last year. I think it had more to do with the elite talent that you had and Jordan Travis saving your butt a lot. But man, Mike just doesn't seem to scheme guys open. Like Mike wants to find one-on-ones. He wants to, create matchups. And, it's like in basketball, that's great, right? In the NBA, we love one-on-ones, right? LeBron gets a switch and has like some 6'2" guard on him. Yeah, you'll take that all day. I don't necessarily know that Norvell doesn't scheme anyone open. You ever think about that? And I know maybe it's hard to see that. But you ever think about like the fact that we never have guys just running wide open? Like it is always just a guy's making a contested catch or there's 2 or 3 guys around him. And I know our wide receivers aren't great, but even last year that was kind of the case. Like think about how many catches Keon made with like guys all around him. Johnny Wilson, really the last 2 years. Johnny Wilson just getting jump balls, back shoulder throws, and Jordan could make those throws and the offensive line gave enough time to do it. But I just don't love Norvell's play calling. I don't love his scheme. I don't love, it's not. So yeah, I think you probably do need a brand new offensive coordinator. And it did sound like he was open to that. Credit to Corey for asking that. Everybody wants to get on the media for not asking tough questions. I thought that was a good question. I thought that was a really good thing to ask was, hey, are you willing to make the changes that matter? And will you stop calling plays? Because you suck at it right now. Maybe they're better after you get more talent in. But even last year, didn't the offense seem clunky last year? Obviously you knew you were going to win every game because you were just so much better than everybody else. But something happened from 2022 to 2023 that it just seemed like the offense really struggled. And so, yeah, I think, and I want to do more around this anyway. But I think Norvell needs to really CEO this thing. And I think it's almost impossible. I see James down there. We can get James in. James, if you're on anything with video, you're welcome to jump on video too, but don't feel any pressure to do that. I want to do more content around this, but here's a little sneak preview, sneak peek. I combined those, I guess. But I do think that Norvell needs to CEO this. I think that there's too much going on in college football now to have your hand in every single thing. And I understand that coaches, when it's their butt on the line, they want to have their hands in every single aspect of their program, and that makes a lot of sense. But for Norvell, I think you hire these people around you to do a job. You need to let them do that job. And maybe there are times where he sees that they're failing at it and he tries to overcompensate or he tries to help out a little bit more or do a little bit more. And I think he's got to hire better. Like everybody wants to get on the GM and say, oh, the GM did this, the GM did that. Based on what I've been told, Norvell has had his fingerprints on every decision that the GM is getting blamed for, right? And maybe that means Norvell made a bad hire with the GM. I'm not necessarily saying that. But if that's the case, then Norvell's distracted because he's got to go and do the GM's job. And we are aware that Norvell has really been the offensive coordinator the last 5 years. We haven't truly had an OC. It's been Norvell running the show and then kind of a counterpart to help. And so Norvell's hand is in that. And then he doesn't have very good recruiters. So here's the whole content that I'm going to plan on doing. So you guys get the whole thing now, and I'll put a video out later. But Norvell's had his hand on offense. He's had his hand on roster. He's had his hand on recruiting because his recruiters aren't very good. Like, he's got to lead up every recruit, because his recruiters stink for the most part. And you got to hire guys around you so that you can manage the 9 or 10 guys under you, not the 85 different personalities, plus all the coaches, plus all the analysts, plus the offense, plus everything else that goes on. And so, yeah, I mean, there's the whole video in a nutshell. I'll put obviously a catchy title and thumbnail on it, but I do think that that's something that he needs to give up. And offense is one of those things. I don't think he should be calling the plays anymore. He's too distracted. He's not done a good job of it. I've heard it's a massive time suck just on his week, right? He spends a lot of time designing offenses and scheming up plays and different things like that. And so, yeah, I do think that that's something that fairly quickly needs to change. And it sounded like he was open to it. All that to say, I think it's really good news that it sounded like he was open to it. We'll see. We'll see what he ultimately does. I think it's a good thing that it sounds like he's open to making those changes. There is a call-in link in the description. I'll also have it added to the comments here. Again, I'll throw it in real quick, Harlan. I got it. If you'd like to call in, if you'd like to chat, you're more than welcome to jump in at any point. If not, I'll just continue to ramble and rant based on you guys' questions. I'll also say, again, I thought Norvell sounded like he had more confidence, which is a good thing. He just seems like he's been a broken, beaten, pathetic person over the last several weeks. And today just sounded a little bit different, a little bit of like, okay, we had to rip the Band-Aid off. We had to do what we had to do. There's more coming. Let's move on. Let's get through these last 3 weeks. And then 2025 starts, probably at 3:01, because I'm sure they're going to make that Florida State game at noon. Starts at 3:01. Actually, they may not. Thinking about if Ohio State and Michigan is then, they might give us a 3:30. So who knows? I hope, no, I'd rather 3:30. Is anybody going to the Florida State game? Like, can they drag you up there to that? Harlan's definitely going to be there at 6 a.m. ready to tailgate. But, yeah, no, I don't know. I think, obviously 2025 starts fairly soon, and, we'll see more decisions made here fairly quickly. I will not be going to FSU UF. Morgan, you should come and hang out. Harlan says he is going. That actually surprises me a little bit. Ooh, Harlan, I just grabbed another 8. So, whew. I didn't realize that when I was putting it in. Hey, James, I see you down there. You're welcome to jump in. If you want to go video, you certainly can at any point, but don't feel any pressure. But how you doing, man? Uh-oh, James went back on mute. James, you can jump in anytime. You're already on stage, so you're good to go. Again, I'll give Decadent a coffee and dessert bar one more shout out. We certainly do appreciate them. Hey, if you are a veteran, we appreciate your service a ton. If you're a veteran that literally has any interest in starting a business, my guy Patrick over at Decadent, a coffee and dessert bar, has you hooked up, and he certainly can help you out with some of the costs. They're running a great deal right now where you can literally franchise a business for $0. He's waiving the $30,000 application, startup franchise fee. If you're a veteran and you have any interest in starting a business, he certainly wants to give back, and he certainly wants to do his part to help. If you're not a veteran and you want to look into franchising a dessert bar, coffee bar, certainly hit me up and I'll get you connected with Patrick. We'd love to get you united and chatting with him. If you're in Warner Robins, if you're in Fulton, Maryland, or if you're in Modesto, California, also hit me up or hit them up. They have different locations through those cities. So, all right, James, third time's the charm, man. Can you hear me? You are on mute though. So that could be it. Dude, James is like, he's like Ron Dugans today. His headset's been cut off. Wonder how many fans go to the Charleston Southern game. Yeah, I'd imagine not many. I got a buddy that I was talking with today. Shout out my buddy Alan. I won't say his last name just in case anybody knows him, but shout out my buddy Alan was telling me like, hey man, with everything that goes on during the season, he's like, we're going to Thanksgiving right after that. And then we're coming back down for the Florida game. He's like, it's just too much. I don't think I can make that game. And I would not be surprised if that stadium was fairly empty for that game. Do you think students will stick around? I saw it's a 1:30 kickoff, so I guess they could still get back, and students are going to stick around and drink anyway. But yeah, I don't think that'll be a very sold out Doak, unfortunately. You know, even for the UNC game, which I know that game didn't go very well, and it cleared out pretty quickly, that game at least had a pretty good crowd to start. And I just don't necessarily see that being the case against Charleston Southern. You can probably get really cheap tickets, though. So if you are anywhere in the area, maybe you should go and check it out. It is a fun time for the kids, and you would be one of the select few that saw Florida State win a game this year. I think I've got us beating Charleston Southern. So, Josh, hey, man, there is a call-in link down below. If you want to call in, you're always welcome. You got to go PG, so if you've been doing deck night on the rocks, you're not allowed to call in if you're feeling it a little bit, but you can certainly call in at any point by hitting the link in the description or in the comments. James, can you hear me now? Fourth time's the charm. I think we got you now.
Sorry, man. I had an audio issue. I don't know what was going on there.
No, you're good. How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good, man. Yeah, pretty good. So, sorry I joined late. I don't know the latest talking point, but I'll tell you that, you know, I was a little. I'll say one thing. I did listen to Mike's presser today. I thought it was pretty good. I think you saw somebody that was sincere. It did hurt their heart that they had to let some folks go, but he absolutely had to make an executive decision there. And I actually don't think it's over. I think there's more to come.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you, and you've probably mentioned at some point in the cast here, but it sounded to me like Mike already has some folks lined up, and I'm hoping that that is the case. And as I've been beating a drum in all platforms, whether it be War Chant or even just X or whatever it may be, I just think you got a big fish hunt. You got to give the recruits something to look forward to because the record ain't it. So I mean, I'm a fan of. I think I've mentioned to you even, Dan Mullen or John Gruden type ilk on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I think you got to go looking at Muschamp or Venables if he gets fired at Oklahoma. I don't know how likely that'll be, but or maybe even somebody put in the chat. I'd go for Todd Bowles at DC. I'm okay with that too because he's definitely not a head coach for my Bucks. But I don't know where you left off, TJ, but that's kind of where I'm at with this.
Yeah. So, okay. If I have to watch one more, okay. So I will tell you this: when they got rid of Jameis, I was a little bit anti-Bucks. Not a little bit. I was pretty anti-Bucks, even though they got Brady and even though they won the Super Bowl. I get it. But I am a bigger Jameis fan than I was a Bucks fan. And so for a couple of years, I took time off. Now we still had a Super Bowl party. We were all wearing Bucks stuff at the party. My kids, I still got pictures of my two oldest. My little one wasn't born yet, which congratulations to you, everybody. James is calling in with a newborn, so he's a real daredevil here. But we had the kids in the pictures with the Bucks stuff and all that. But I wasn't even really that excited because I still was just hurt about Jameis. I know that's a really selfish thing but that's just where my fandom lied. I'm a bigger college fan than NFL fan, and so that's how I'll always be, right? I'd rather the Browns win on Sunday than the Bucks at this point, just because I like Jameis. So, and because they got rid of Watson went down. So, all that said, I finally started buying back into the NFL. I went to the playoff game last year with one of my buddies. We went to a tailgate before. Wasn't quite as good as a Double Fries tailgate, but it was really good. No, it was actually way better. It was a What the Buck tailgate. It was kind of our New Orleans or DC tailgate where they rented a whole lot, and it was great, right? They were phenomenal. And so I went to the playoff game, and then the next week, my wife and I were at the Hard Rock. We watched the playoff game against the Lions. That I was actually upset when they lost. And then this year, I went to opening day against the Commanders. Sorry, I don't want to offend anybody. The Commanders, and Jaden Daniels cannot win games when I'm in the building. He's 0-3, and so that was great. And so I'm like buying into the Bucks, and then they blow it on, was that a Thursday night against Atlanta? And then they lose, and they lose last week. Again, Todd Bowles an idiot, not going for 2 against Kansas City. Then this week they blow it again. You got a 1st and goal inside the 10, and you blow it again. So, but I agree with you, because he wouldn't be the one making decisions, and he is actually a good defensive coordinator. I'd be good with Todd Bowles. Hopefully he does get fired for the Bucks too, because I finally bought back into the Bucks, and it's maybe I'm the jinx, maybe I'm the problem, because when I don't, when I'm not cheering for them, they do really well. And so, yeah, I'm done with Todd Bowles in Tampa. But if he wants to come to Tallahassee, that'd be fine. Dude, how funny would it be? All that said, nobody really cared about my Bucks story there. But how funny would it be to have – I think there's a very, very small chance of this happening. But how funny would it be to have Muschamp and Mullen and go into Gainesville next year and win? Like, to me, if that specific scenario happens, if we have Muschamp and Mullen wearing Florida State polos in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, and we beat them next year, I will forget about this season. Like, I'll give Mike a complete pass on this season, because some things are bigger than the sport, and that one of those things is trolling. And so being able to have that for the rest of my life, to me, the way the Gator fans remember Ron Zookfield, right? 04, that would be the same thing to me. Hey, we took both your cast off coaches, brought them in, and we won. So yeah, that would be an all-time moment for me.
So honestly, TJ, I agree with you. That would be class, right? But I would say this for me, the more you sit and take your emotions off, right? And if you just think logically about this, right? There's a few things kids care about, right? Number one, if I was a kid, the thing that would be most important to me is what's going to get me to the league, right? Because that's where the big payday comes in. Yeah. Number 2 is probably NIL. And then number 3 is probably, winning, right? Or maybe you could, to some kids, those two are interchangeable, right? But so if I'm thinking about this logically, we can't sell them on record. And actually, although we went 13-0 last year, we had 10 studs that went to the NFL, right? So, I mean, the thing is you've got to offer them something, and we're not swimming in cash like Texas, right? So the NIL, that's out. We can get you to the NFL, because Mike did that, right? We did that as a university last year. But I think what you got to do is you got to bring in some assistant coaches that are going to have proven track records, whether at the next level or at the collegiate level. But also, I think Mike really has to just give up play calling. I just, even last year when they're in the 13-0 season, there was a lot of games that I felt that the offense was really subpar. And I just think it's time that he can. I think he's a good organizational type guy. I think he's great with the media. I think he's a fiery person. I think, and I've met him multiple times. I've golfed with him. He's a genuinely super nice guy. I think all that's fine, but it's time just to worry about the program and let someone else call the plays. And so for me, that's why I think you got to go in with a true offensive mind in the ilks of the Dan Mullins or John Gruden type. Those are just 2. There's probably plenty. And also on the defensive side of the ball, no more taking a chance on an up-and-coming guy at some university that nobody really watches on TV anyway. It's got to be something that you can tell these kids on December 1st, this is who's coming in the door. Are you with us or not? And that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I went on I know you're joining late, and you're good. I went on a rant about play calling and why I think he should give that up as one of many things and be more of a CEO. So no, I'm in complete agreement there. I think that would be a really wise decision by him. And I haven't loved the offense anyway. It's not just him needing to OC or to CEO it. I haven't loved the way the offense has looked really the last 2 years. In 2022, I thought it was a lot better. But yeah, I mean, it's got to improve. You, like I said, you got to be able to sell kids on things. But I've looked at this, and I've talked about it on here. FSU 2025 football schedule. The schedule's daunting from the perspective of like the big games, but there are really no ACC games that you would say like are just impossible outside of, I do think the Clemson one in Death Valley is pretty tough. So even if I gave you like Alabama, Clemson, Florida, and Miami, really tough games, right? And I don't see you beating Alabama or Clemson right now. Obviously, stranger things have happened. You wouldn't have predicted Vandy to beat Bama this year either. So crazy things do happen and turnarounds do happen. But you look at the rest of the schedule. I'm sorry, not Duke. NC State, I think that's a very winnable game. Stanford should be a win. Virginia should be a win. Wake Forest should be a win. Virginia Tech should be a win. Kent State should be a win. East Texas obviously should be a win. And then you're left with like, you've got Pitt on here. That is a game that I think Florida State could certainly win. And so what are you looking at? 8-4, 9-3 possible. Say you drop one of those and so you go 7-5 or 8-4, like with a little bit of competence, with a quarterback and an offensive line that can just block for you. This team, I don't want to say it's easy to win because this year has proven anything but that. But if we kept the whole gang together for next year, right? The whole staff, the whole roster, all that stuff. Yeah, I would say that you're probably not going 6-6, right? I'd say it'd be pretty tough to get to even that. But if you can get some competence in here, the ACC schedule actually sets up pretty well for you. Outside of your big ones, Clemson and Miami, always going to be tough. Like whether they're good, bad, whatever, like those are tough games no matter what. And you're probably not winning in Death Valley because I do think Clemson will be good again next year. They bring a lot of talent back. And so, yeah, that's a tough one. Bama's obviously probably going to be a loss. Yeah, I don't think that Florida and Miami are just auto losses, but they're certainly tough. But then the rest of the games on the schedule, there's nobody that I just look at and say like, well, that's an auto loss. Obviously, you're going to beat Kent State and you're going to beat East Texas A&M. Pitt, overrated. They're going to have a new quarterback next year, I would think. Virginia Tech, they want to fire Brent Pry. NC State lost to both Duke and Carolina this year. Wake, terrible. Stanford, terrible. Virginia, terrible. So, yeah, there's a lot of games you can win there with just a little bit of competence. Like, it's not very hard to win in the ACC. And so if you can bring some guys in, hit the portal hard, you certainly could have a pretty good chance to rebound very quickly. Like, you could be talking about a 7-game turnaround very fast.
Agree. And then, just some coaches that are going to focus on the details. If I have to watch one more timeout before a field goal or one more illegal substitution on defense, I'm going to jump out of a window, man. Like I can deal with people dropping balls and stuff like that because we just don't have the talent that we did last year. But the stuff that's absolutely coachable is embarrassing, and that's tough. And I've been one of the guys in I have a pretty big friend group that are all Knowles, and I've been the guy that's holding on and just saying, give these guys a chance. I don't know. It's like, but after watching some of that, I just can't. It's like I watch high school football games on Friday that don't have that many calls of that. It's embarrassing. And so it had to be done. He had to do what he had to do. I think, like I said, I think there's more to come. And my hope is that what he's doing is he's finding the replacement before he's pulling the trigger. That's what my hope and my heart tells me. And I really hope that is, because it was kind of weird. I understood the OCDC, and I understand Dugans, but just those three. And in that way, like, I don't know, it was just something, there was a pattern there for me. It's kind of weird. So I think there's more to come. If it was me, everybody would go except for Surtain. And I wouldn't fire Odell, but I'd probably ask Odell just to come be an ambassador at this point. But I mean, the rest of them can go at this point. I was the holdout for Popovich too, but after these special teams fiascos of the last few weeks, I mean, maybe even that's starting to become a problem. So,
yeah, I don't know that you would, and I don't like him at defensive end. Your credit for Verse and Johnson has run out with me, just like Mike's credit for 13 wins has kind of run out too. I don't like him at defensive end. I don't know that you can keep a guy on just to coach special teams. At one point, like that was my idea. Like, oh, just have him coach special teams. But I don't know that you can do that. Maybe if you hired like an OC, like you got to free up another position if that's the case. So you got to keep the defensive backs coach as just one, which some teams do, some teams don't. Some have a safety and a cornerback. And then you got to eliminate someone else's position too. So are you going to go with offensive coordinator, tight end coach? Are you going to go with an offensive coordinator, QB coach? Like all those things are possible, but I don't know. I don't know. Moving the guy to just special teams only seems kind of crazy to me, especially with what Pat makes. Like you can't pay him what he's making now just to be a special teams coach, and he's not going to take a pay cut. And so to me, that's why you probably need to move on there. I'm not super confident that Mike does or doesn't, but yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you on that one.
Yeah, man. So we'll see. I mean, like I said in Mike's presser, it sounded like he's got some folks lined up, and he even said that there's been people reaching out from the next level. Whether that's just I don't, and any other coach I'd call, I'd take that with a grain of salt. But I think Mike sometimes is too honest, and so there probably was some calls. Um, you know, let's see what happens. I do think it's paramount. I don't want to rush the process, but I do think it's super important to have something to tell the recruits by December 1st, an early signing period. I think you have to. So,
Yeah, and it's all expedited at this point. Signing period is a couple days after the UF game. So if Mike really, I have heard some whispers that he had some guys that he thinks are good. I have no idea who that is. If I knew, I would certainly put it out there. But yeah, I don't. You don't have a lot of time to mess around because that early signing period comes quick. So, James, I appreciate you, my man.
thanks, TJ. And if everybody's listening, please don't stop supporting the Battle's End and Seminole Boosters. It's important. We gotta stay with the club and stay with the organization. Thanks, TJ. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy. No, I agree. It's too freaking hot in Florida in December, and I haven't had a reason to wear this because we haven't gotten a commit in a while. But I do still have the Battles End quarter zip right here. It's just too freaking hot to put it on. Josh, I see you down there hanging out, man. Thanks for your patience. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Doing great. I just got home from picking up from cheer practice and saw you, so I had to jump on. I don't miss them if I have the chance to be here. I'm not at work, and there is no deck night on the rocks happening tonight. I'm on the deck, but I don't. No worries about it being kept clean. But I'll tell you this: if you don't mind me doing a selfish plug, Friday night at 8 o'clock, Amy and I will be on the deck live giving away some tater bottles, some Colonel Taylor small batch Buffalo Trace, some Wellers. We did a store pick. We got our first barrel pick we just did, the Maker's Mark. We're going to be giving some of those away. So if anybody
Heck
likes
yeah.
bourbon and wants to drown their Seminole sorrows, Friday night, 8 o'clock on the YouTubes, and we're going to be giving away some good bourbon. So
Heck yeah.
there's my
I
selfish
like it.
plug.
I like it. No, I'll tell that story real quick. One time we had a softball show, and we had some of the softball girls on here. And my guy Josh, like he got a little loose with his lips with the girls on. And I was like, "Hey, dog, this is a softball show, man. You can't be doing this." So, but actually, I was kind of just giving you a hard time earlier. It's 9 p.m., so all the kids are in bed, and it's just me and you. So if you want to let loose on this one, you're allowed to. But how you feel after these coaching changes?
You know, excuse me. I don't need to let loose, because I'm good with where we're at. After about 4 losses, I was like, well, this season's shit. So I'm just gonna just watch and enjoy and be a fan and sit back and criticize myself because there's just no point at this point now today with 9 losses and the pathetic show that was North Carolina and Notre Dame. What's the point of getting emotionally attached to it? Just be a fan and watch it burn, and then we'll wait and see what happens. And I tell you what, the coaching changes never really felt like it's that big a deal because, especially with Norvell having the controls of the team, if he doesn't pick up an OC that's going to change up his offense, I don't know how I feel about it right now. Because to be honest with you, I didn't hate Adam Fuller. I thought he did great. I hated the third and Fullers. That was ridiculous. But I figured they needed to either get Sertan to start teaching a zone or someone to figure out how to play a zone or get some players that understand zone. And the defense would have been pretty good. Was Jared Verse and Brandon Fisk the Band-Aid that kept the dam from bursting of last year? I don't know,
Yeah.
probably, but I guess we'll see. But I don't know how I feel about it. I don't see how a man could take a team and do what he did 2 years ago and last year, and then just totally shit the bed this year, and then be able to turn it around. I mean, we can sit here and use all the cliches and stuff, but that team last year wasn't Jordan Travis, because without Jordan Travis in that defense, they didn't deserve to be in the playoff. As much as I'm probably going to get beat down for that, I feel like if they had Jordan Travis, they won a national championship. Without Jordan Travis, they didn't need to be there, and they're proving that today, because that team that played Georgia that we all want to ignore is this team this year, and they are proving that that was not a fluke against Georgia.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to disagree with everybody that was telling us like, oh well, that's your team next year, and that's what you're gonna look like next year. Obviously, we all fought that. No, we're gonna reload in the portal, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna go get this guy or that guy, and some of these portal guys we got in are better, and you'll see next year. Like, I mean, it's hard to argue. Like, if Georgia would have played us week 1 this year instead of Clemson week 1, like it would have been bad. Like it would have been really bad. So it's hard to argue against that. Now I still think the guys that did put that effort forward still deserve to be there. But I see your point. And I think that if you're in the playoffs, some of those guys do play, like the Verses and guys that got surgery and stuff like that. And so I do think last year's team did deserve that. But that Orange Bowl certainly was not a continuation, because continuation means like after, but like a precursor is, I guess, the right word to try and use a $5 word or whatever. A precursor to what was coming in 2024, because we just didn't get better anywhere.
No, and is Mike Norvell good enough to repeat without that talent? I mean, you keep saying people, if you've heard it for years. Jameis Winston made Jimbo Fisher. Well, did Jordan Travis make Mike Norvell? If Mike Norvell been that successful with Tate Rodemaker instead of Jordan, with Alex Hornibrook, with whoever mid grade, not very good, immobile quarterback we want to talk about, because we saw those plays that Jordan made in Florida. Now, is Mike going to be able to do that with Glenn or Tate, or not Tate, Luke or Jones or Brady Schmiegel, whoever down the road, or are we even going to be able to get those guys? Because it's not like Florida State's been recruiting very well for the past 10 years almost. Um, it's not how the hell we expect to turn it around now, all of a sudden, just because we fire a pretty damn good recruiter on the offensive line, a shitty recruiter, and a mediocre recruiter. Are we going to replace it? Who the hell are we going to get to come in? If we get this guy from Oregon that people are talking about or whispering, the defensive coordinator, he won't even be here until January.
Yeah.
The damn late signing period's going to be over by the time he gets here. This year's recruiting is done. And then the transfer portal, we did so well in that the first few years with Jermaine Johnson and Jared Verse, is because all the other teams were turning their nose up to it. And then they realized how well Florida State did and how well Dion did and how well Lane was nailing down a good team this year. They're all going to jump on board. Everybody's going to have equal footing. No one's going to have a head start. And I'm not blaming the Battle's End, because I 100% know the Battle's End will do whatever they need to do. And I believe in Ingram 100%. But the Battle's End is going to have to give Mike all this money. They're going to have to. They keep saying we don't want to reset the market, or we don't want to pay more than they deserve. Well, Florida State's going to have to pay a little bit more than people are worth to get them here. They're going to have to pay more than Georgia and Oregon and Michigan and USC to get these people here, to get this team turned around, or Mike's not going to have a damn chance to get the high school recruiting back turned around, no matter who he hires this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong about anything. I still very much have my doubts that Mike Norvell can turn this around. I think that my percentages on a turnaround are still fairly low. I will say they are higher than they would be if we wouldn't have made changes. And so I'll meet you 90% of the way there and say, like, yes, I still don't, like, I would not bet money that Mike Norvell is the coach in 4 years at Florida State. But I know that's a fact if he keeps everything going the same way it was. So I'm not going to I won't say that the changes are meaningless. I just don't think it's like, oh, we fired 3 coaches, we're back. There's still a lot of proving that needs to be done. On Jordan and the Jimbo with you're right. Yes, Jordan and Jameis obviously covered up so many issues. I don't know how many issues Jameis covered up in 2013 because the defense was holding teams to, holding teams to 11 points a game. And so I think it's a little unfair to just because he did develop Jordan and he did bring in the talent like Jared and Braden Fisk and Trey Benson and Johnny Wilson and Keon and stuff like that. So he does get credit for that too. But you're right. Without a quarterback who still at times saved his neck, you think about the Florida game. Yeah, how successful are we really, right? And so there's some serious truth to that too. So, Josh, I appreciate you, man. I'm gonna jump to a couple other callers, but thanks for hanging out for a few minutes tonight, bud.
All right. Hey, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you letting me talk. And like I said, anybody wants some cheap bourbon or good bourbon that's free, Friday night, 8:00 live stream, giving away some taters. But thanks
Dude,
again, TJ.
I'm on the sober train for the next 3 or 4 months, but I do want to try that Maker's Pick. So save me one.
I'll send you a bottle. I've got, I think I have your address from when I sent it before, but just message me your address and I'll send you a bottle.
I appreciate it. Oh man, Josh is a good guy. Yeah, if you are into bourbon at all, you should go check out Deck Night on the Rocks. It's Josh and Amy's podcast show here on YouTube. Deck Night on the Rocks. Christian, can we get you in? I think you're on mute right now, but how you doing, man?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm blessed, man. On behalf of Gator Nation, man. Hear me out. I'm not here to troll by any
That's
means,
all right. You
man.
can troll
We
if you
all
want
in
to,
the
man. We deserve it. Although, being a Gator fan, though, you got to be careful too, though.
man. We got at the helm. We got Scott P. Diddy Strickland ruining the program, man. So yeah, man. I heard the S bomb, man. I told myself I'm not gonna cuss, but we got allegations. If it ain't one thing, it's another, man. Aside from the trolling aside, man, I asked Gator Nation this question on the High Top. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that, right? The High Top
Sure.
Sports channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. What you think about these lame duck coaches, man? These coaching contracts, man. There needs to be some kind of clause, man, that says, look, if you grossly, and I mean grossly, underperform like Billy Napier in consecutive seasons, man, or even do something extreme, what you see in Tallahassee with Mike Norvell, you do something extreme like win less than 3 games in a single season, there needs to be some kind of clause, man, that says, look, you will receive very little to no buyout money and you will be up for termination. I don't know, man. There needs to be something to give leverage back to these universities, man. What you think?
Yeah, I mean, they have to band together. And so what's hard, I think, because you're absolutely right. It is absurd that you can win 1 game or 2 games if we beat Charleston Southern and keep your job. It is absurd that Billy Napier can go under 500 3 years in a row at the University of Florida. We don't like each other. Not me and you, but we don't like each other. But nobody really wants to see Florida State winning 2 games. Nobody really wants to see Florida winning 4 games a year. That's just not football here in the state of Florida, right? I'm not even one of these people that's I want Florida to be 11-0 when we take them on to ruin their season. I'd rather y'all be a little bit down from that because it helps recruiting, but nobody wants to see this crap. This is absolutely absurd. And the fact that these coaches, there's no incentive for them to be better because failing as a college football coach is one of the best things you can do in America. If you're a head coach in college football and bro, I'm not even playing. What is Mike Norvell
No,
What are people going to say to him? Bro, he's got a $65 million buyout. Who cares, man? We fail, we fail. I don't think that Billy or Mike have so little integrity that they're trying to fail. But what is the incentive for them to get better? And so it is a complete sham that coaching contracts are what they are. And obviously, Sexton orchestrates all this, and the agents really have the sport by the balls. But I mean, it's going to take the universities and the athletic departments banding together and saying like, no, dog, we're not doing this. Like, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to sign contracts. We're going to not sign your people anymore. And we're not doing this. But the problem with that is, right, and I agree with you, there should be clauses of if you don't make a bowl, your pay gets cut in half. And if you don't win 4 games, your pay gets cut down to like $2 million or something like that, right? And so, which is still a hell of a deal, right? Nearly every person sitting in that stadium is not making $2 million a year to objectively fail at their job. But the problem with it is that like programs like Texas and like Notre Dame and Ohio State and stuff, like they don't care. Like stroking a check for $70 million if you're Texas A&M, like they did not even bat an eye at that. And so, yeah, Florida State and Florida and Georgia might be able to band together, and then all the programs that are kind of like under them and money, like would probably all be like, yeah, we're gonna, like, that's fine. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to sign these contracts. But you think Texas isn't going to say like, oh, well, nobody else is signing these contracts? Like, we're going to do it. Like, we'll sign the best of the best every single year. We'll buy them out if we have to. A&M stroked a $75 million check, didn't think twice about it. And so you're completely right. And it does need to change. And I do think, again, Florida State, Miami, some of these other programs would absolutely be in on this and not put up with it. But Texas A&M ain't, these programs with like, I'm talking like generational money, they ain't doing it. So in that case, if Florida State and Florida and Miami, you're going to put one hand behind your back and let Texas and all these other programs that will do it continue to get up on you. Like, you got to keep up with the Joneses. So, but it is a complete sham. It is so ridiculous.
I'm just tired of these lame duck. I'm just tired of these lame duck coaches like Mike Norvell, Billy Napier, who never should have stepped foot on these campuses, man. And it's just like, I don't know, man. It's heartbreaking, man. I do blame, Scott P. Diddy Strickland and Sexton, man. But I don't know, man. Like I said, I didn't come here to troll, man. I just want to hop on here and really ask you that question. I'm gonna say God bless, man, and best of luck moving forward, man. Thank you for the call, though.
No, I appreciate you calling in. I think you called in my girl Allie's show, so I appreciate you, bro. Yeah, it's crazy to me that they're not firing Napier after this year. Like, I've seen all the articles and I've seen all the water carrying of like, oh, well, if you do it next year, this, that, and the other. I understand why they can't fire Norvell. It is crazy to me.
What about P. Diddy Strickland? But what about P. Diddy Strickland? There's been multiple prior allegations, even before the one with Todd Golden, the basketball coach. But we got Scott Strickland Diddy, who can still be our athletic director. I don't know, man. I don't even want to go into detail, man. I'm I'm gonna tap in with you another time before I have to pop off and say something, man. Hey, but God bless you, man. Take care.
All right, man. Dude, that was a good call. P. Diddy Strickland is great. P. Diddy Strickland is really, really good. So, all right, I think we got Todd up next. Todd, I don't know if you can hear me. I saw you on video here a minute ago, but we can add you in. I like anybody with the name Todd. So, bro, when he said he was a Gator fan for a minute, I was like, oh no. And then I realized who he was. He does call in sometimes to High Top and Alley, so I wasn't too worried. Todd, how's it going? I see you down there, and I do see the mic. It looks like you're added. Todd, maybe jump out and jump back in. He got you disconnected. So 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me, Todd? I don't hear him. Harlan, if you could have him jump out and jump back in, then I might be able to hear him. I had that happen on Allie's show one time too. Yeah, failing as a college football coach. We'll take Todd's call and then we'll wrap up here. But failing as a college football coach is, yeah, it's a heck of a gig. It's really not a bad deal at all. Dude, it is getting so hot. I gotta text my wife to turn the air down a little bit more because I'm dying, y'all. Dude, I thought I was going to take some trolls. And I know they only got 4 wins, but that's still like 300% more than us. And so, yeah, I thought he was going to give it to us, but shout out to Christian for not lighting me up tonight. I was ready for it. All right, we got Todd in now. You might have to refresh him, Harlan, or switch the screen or something, and then it should be good. Yeah, man.
Fine.
Yeah. How's it going, bud?
Hey, greetings from Illinois, man. Anyway, I didn't watch a game last weekend because I knew we were going to get dog walked. A friend of mine told me, because my brother's a professional wrestler, but problem he asked me, he couldn't believe our program turned around in 180 degrees from last year than this year. I says, no, you're right. Because I looked at that Orange Bowl lesson, I looked at our future, it didn't look right. No. So my problem is, the firing was due, but here's what if we're going to fire on the offensive line, I would start all those young bloods right now, and the other guys can just go park cars. You're trying to tell me Lucas Simmons, who is 6'8", not play left tackle? I think he's a lot better than Washington. His big body, and I think Monroe is a good anywhere. The guy I seen when he played backup, I seen him in games when we blew out, and he was just destroyed his opponent. And early, I think early's better. So why are we playing those scrubs? That's my question.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you. It seems like the offensive line play at Florida State. I mean, I do think development certainly is a question. Like how I agree with you. How is Lucas Simmons not there? How is he not ready? How is he not available? I don't really get it. But yeah, put some young guys in. Like everything else is trash. Like why would you not just give them a shot? Well, they did play early a little bit.
Yeah. So I believe Atkins could fight. If you can't develop those young guys, because you risk you got these blue guys, and you tell me they're not good enough than those scrubs they got now. And then another thing in the portal, there's one mistake they did do. They didn't go after a tight end. They should have went after and got that Stanford tight end who was Holly. Because what, they think they lied on Courtney? Courtney couldn't block a colt. And, missing Biscuit was a good impact, because I like everybody missed Biscuit, even though he was almost shy of being an offensive lineman. The guy had soft hands, and he loved the wham block. He would have been missed. He'd be a lot better than Murlock.
The evaluation I was going to say the evaluation that went on, but the evaluation that didn't go on this year is really rather, I don't know, inexcusable. Like it's what leads to things like this. Because I'll tell you, they thought they had a roster. I mean, we thought they had a roster too. I mean, I'm not going to just blame it on them.
No, I'm going to disagree. There were no.
They thought that they were going to be good this year.
No.
Clearly
nope,
not.
Because I was worried about they were lacking speed. They were lacking physical toughness. They were lacking things. Mike Norvell pulled the wall on you guys. Pulled the wall. He faked out. There wasn't the greatest one. He was trying to hype. He was trying to be on the hype train, and the hype train got derailed. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like I can't believe the Beavers were dropping
this bad though.
Yeah. Well, I saw the future of that Orangeville game. I seen what it was like, because there was no depth on the defensive lineman. There was, the recruiting impact on linebackers when not getting guys are like 600 Granny Shannon specials. Okay, they're outdated. Here's the problem: is you don't need Ferraris, you need Bugattis, not AMC Gremlins to be on this team. That's what they're missing. Not Ferraris, Bugattis.
Yeah.
So I've been watching your show. Like I said, there's Illinois fan. Even though I'm stuck in Northern territory, Iowa territory, a lot of Big Ten, and they always talk trash. But you know what? When I was wearing the floors, they didn't shut up, because you know what? We can beat these teams. But another defense core I would love to get is Iowa. And there's a guy who can coach down, gets those guys downfield. One of the best defenses around here, well coached. I don't know about Crudy, but Butterline, he can develop players. He's a great defensive coach, but I don't think he'll live Iowa. But here's the deal: Marty. There's a guy we need. Oh my God, that would be fun to get him on the coaching staff.
I at least appreciate his passion. That's the one thing. The one thing about former players, and I think there's pros and cons to everything, but the one thing about former players, they're at least going to care. Although maybe Ron didn't, so maybe not everybody. But I do think Cromartie would. I agree with you there.
Well, Ron Dugans was the Robin next to Peter Rourke as the Batman back in the 90s. Okay,
for sure.
Okay, Ron Dugans is like, he did other things. The problem is ahead. Just imagine if Randy Moss didn't get in trouble. Imagine how dangerous that wide receiver crew would be with Peter Warrick and Randy Moss back then.
Yeah, we'd have won 3 straight titles.
That would be.
You ever see the Cannell tweet? You ever see Cannell tweet where he's like, dude, two wide receivers were red shirts my senior year, Randy Moss and Peter Warrick. Like, obviously, like, guys don't have red shirt now. Like, could you imagine being Danny Cannell and having to throw those guys in practice, but then never getting to throw to them in real life? Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
What part of Illinois are you from?
I'm from Northwest Corner. I'm like 30 miles from Iowa. So basically, I'm an hour and a half from Iowa, from the Hawkeye campus. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm about an hour 5 minutes from Wisconsin. So I'm in Badger territory, Iowa territory. I'm about an hour and a half from Champaign. So pretty much I'm in a good location.
Yeah. Well, if we make the Big Ten, man, we'll have to tailgate together, bro.
I mean, hey, anytime. I mean, yeah, I live in the northwest corner in Illinois, the third most west corner. I mean, if I go 30 miles from Iowa, 70 miles from Wisconsin, and about 2 hours west Chicago.
That ain't bad.
So,
did you go to Notre Dame?
I heard you like beer. You want me to bring you? No, my buddy is a professional wrestler. He's in the indie circuit. I went down to watch him wrestle. Didn't go watch Florida State get mad. I couldn't stand to beat. But I had some Notre Dame fans.
Yeah. What were you saying about beer?
You know, they're pretty much jerk. I heard you like beer. I said, maybe I should bring you a gift sometime called Spotted Cow. It's the best beer around here. It's made in a little brewery in New Glarus, Wisconsin. So I'll bring that to you as a gift.
Dude, I'm down. You go to Tallahassee, you let me know, man. I'll treat you.
I will bring you a case of Spotted Cow beer. That is the best beer around here. It's made in a little brewery in New Glarus, Wisconsin, which is like Green County, is like Switzerland in the world, in America.
I like
what
it.
You. Oh yeah,
man. I appreciate you for hanging out with us tonight, Todd. Call in anytime, man. You're good with me.
All right, man. Peace out.
Thanks, buddy. All right, what have we been? About an hour and 15 minutes. I got this question a couple of times. I'm in Tampa, by the way. I know you guys didn't ask me that where I was from, but I'm in Tampa. I also saw, Josh, I was going to come up to the Bama game in Knoxville. And that just didn't work out. I did go to Tuscaloosa for the Georgia game, and so it was hard to make 2 out-of-state trips since I saw you in Dublin too. So travel was hard. I am looking at the UGA game at Tennessee next year. I think that might be a fun one. I could be talked into that. So maybe we'll make it up there for UGA at Tennessee next year in Knoxville. And then I got a question a couple of times. I tried to chat this, but maybe it didn't come through. I was born in '90, so I picked up Florida State and the Noles once I realized that that's where Warrick Dunn and Derek Brooks went. I don't ever remember watching them play for Florida State, but being in Tampa, I picked up the Noles because that's where they were my favorite NFL players here on the Bucks. Also, Gene Deckerhoff calling Bucks games and Noles games. I was like, oh, well, I love Gene Deckerhoff, and so I need to cheer for whatever college he's with. So that's how I picked my college team. Also, the colors, weren't offensive like the orange that all of our rivals wear. But yeah, so that's how I picked Florida State. The first games I really remember were like 97-ish. I don't remember the 97 championship, speaking of Tennessee, or the 98 championship. But I do remember the game against Michael Vick. So I remember the 99. I remember the 99 Florida game, but I was like 9 years old. So I don't remember all of it. I'm not going to pretend to have seen all of that. And then I vividly remember the 2000 national championship against Oklahoma. I do remember 99's championship a little bit, as much as a 9-year-old can. I vividly remember, 2000 and then 2001, 2002. Obviously, I remember, Rick Sam in 03. So that's how I became a Florida State fan. That's when I kind of picked them up, like, whenever that was, 97, 98, somewhere in there. So when Dunn and Brooks were playing for the Bucks, that's kind of how I picked it. So yeah, so I'm young. I'm a baby. Most of you guys are older. I know the analytics. Hey, if you're still watching a little over triple digits, we've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. Hit the subscribe button. Do me a favor and do us that solid. hit the thumbs up on your way out too. And again, I appreciate Decadent Coffee and Dessert Bar. If you're a vet, shoot me a message. If you have any interest in doing some business, they're looking for vets to work with. Shoot me a message on social media, or you can email me, tj@doublefriesnoslaw.com, and I'm happy to connect you with their owner, Patrick. So appreciate all the vets, all the service. Josh, I know you're in here too. Appreciate you guys all for hanging out here and chatting with us, all the callers, all the commenters. Appreciate you guys a ton for hanging out. Go Noles.